So this is the wiring of a standard M4 gearbox version 2. This is a front wired one, which means the battery connector comes out the front of the gearbox as opposed to coming out the back. So like a gun where the battery goes in the handguard would be a front wired, one where it goes in like the stock, or the buffer tube would be a rear wired. So all airsoft wiring really basically is kind of like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. So the way it turns on is you have these two metal pieces right here, which are called the trigger contacts, and this solid metal piece called the trigger shuttle. So all it really does, that shoves a piece in there, completes the circuit, power goes from the battery down to the motor, spins the motor, and your gun shoots. The gun keeps shooting until that connection is broke. It's really all there is to that. So a couple of things is you'll hear a lot about upgrading your gun or putting a MOSFET in there to protect the trigger contacts. Now, if you don't want to, it's perfectly fine. There are other benefits to MOSFET, but a lot of times you'll just hear about the protecting your trigger contacts, but all you can really do is you just clean it off with a file or a Q-tip inside and on the trigger shuttle, and you'll be fine for at least a couple of years. I really only see carbon after like many years of use or when using 11.1. And what happens with that is when your trigger shuttle gets closer to trigger contacts, is sometimes it'll arc and then carbon will build up and then you have a bad connection or sometimes no connection at the worst case. So it's easy just to get in there and clean it off. Or you can get a MOSFET which will bypass that problem, and we'll cover that in a different video. The other thing about the wiring harness is you have to be careful when you're reassembling it. And the reason for that is because in the M4, in the front or rear wire, the wires go past the motor hole. So you can see right here, the motor will go up in here and kind of go over the wires, and when you put it wrong, if you don't know what you're doing, when you put the motor in here, the motor can, at worst case, it'll spin and shoot up the wire, or it'll pop up and you're trying to remove the motor, it'll get caught like this, and then you can't remove it unless you pull it, which will strip the wire. So the way to get around that is the wire that crosses the hole right here, this should always be in the bottom. And what that does is in the top wire pushes down on the bottom wire to keep it away from the motor pinion. So it's less likely for that to happen. Now there are some manufacturers that do little clips, like this VSC gearbox has a little clip to help keep down that wire. Some of the Crytek gearboxes, other gearboxes have a slit that the bottom wire clips into, and it keeps it down so it doesn't get with that motor pinion. The other thing is this is literally just wire. So if you want to go to a Home Depot and you want to get like 16 or 18 gauge wire or get some fancy low resistance wire online, you definitely can do that. It's just whatever wire fits best in your gearbox. And yeah, that's really it.